Well, I mean, this guys, the players, I mean, they adjusted their chin straps a little tighter, and this guy right here, man, talk to this guy right here. 2 big interceptions and pick 6. Those are the best kind. Great job, Mike. Proud of you.
Hey, Mike, your coach calls your defense the no-star defense. Yet you guys are so effective. How are you able to do what you're able to do?
I mean, just playing together. Like we all got to work together as a team. The coverage got to cover. The pressure got to get there. And, when you combine that, that's just what we thrive off of. We just thrive off of playing together, playing as one accord, and just attacking the ball.
All right. Good evening, everybody. That was Michael Barrett and Jim Harbaugh talking to Rick Pizzo out there in Piscataway after Michigan's victory over Rutgers. Welcome in to the Michigan Football Postgame Live. I'm Dennis Fithian, and I am joined by a former Wolverine, Jim Scarcelli, who's on the line and ready to talk about this one. Scar, 52-17, but man, a very emotional day from the start to just moments ago, what happened down in Baton Rouge, and of course Michigan coming back in a tale of 2 halves, really putting it on Rutgers in the second half to come away with their 9th victory of the season.
Yeah, a lot of football today, a lot of good football today. I would call our defense the all-star defense, not the no-name. They're all stars, Denny. They're all good. We got a lot of good players. It was a great win. We got tested. We went on the road. I knew, night game, they came off a big loss and they were fired up. They gave us a good punch, but we did some great things to respond. And that's a sign of a good football team. We made some mistakes in our punt protection, got them fired up. They got some emotion going there, but it was a great win. We responded, mental toughness, talent, coaching made adjustments. We're rolling.
Tell me about that punch, because it was 17-14 at the half, and Rutgers with the lead, the first deficit that the Wolverines faced at the break. And you're a former player, but I'm looking online, and people thought this game was over. I mean, they thought Michigan, this was not going to be their night in Piscataway. It was complete. It was panic in Piscataway. Michigan fans thought they were going to lose this game, and then everybody else was coming after them as well, maybe hoping for that. But where were you at? What'd you think? They took a punch. Where were your? What was your outlook for the second half?
Denny, I saw a stat once. A guy did a statistics on when a team that has a punt blocked, they lose like 80-90% of the time. So. Did you want me to break down that punt block? Is that what you asked me?
Well, no. I was asking where your mindset was at.
I just felt because we drove the ball the first drive. We drove it right down. We scored. We stopped them early on. There was no signs that that they were driving the ball. I mean, it was the same. Their offense was pretty much the same thing as Michigan State. Let's throw a prayer up to our big tall receiver. Let them push off a little bit, but they didn't get nothing, no ground game going to make me think, that we're going to have problems. And then they didn't do anything defense. Look, Schiano's a good defensive coach. I think he's a real good defensive coach. The day he gets good players, that's a problem. But they just don't have the players. I think they play good technique. They'd give you a lot of problems. But I was confident. Just because I think, they didn't do anything that showed me other than the punt block and a prayer up to a big, tall receiver that they're going to be able to methodically drive the football on us.
But what about Michigan's offense in the first half? Sure enough, they were able to get into the red zone. Everybody's talking about scoring touchdowns in the red zone. And, they got down there in the first quarter. They scored 2 touchdowns, but, they just kept running the ball. It was it was, what do you want to call it, vanilla or predictable or whatever. I mean, they were right down there at the goal line. They just kept trying to hammer it. And ultimately it was successful, but it set a little bit of a tone. And again, I'm talking about Michigan fans that were like looking at this and saying, you just can't run the ball every single time. And I'll tell you, Scar, I saw all of them and, I'm just, kind of hanging in there. But the first 50-yard field goal that Michigan lost, that drive, it was a 3rd and 3, and I'm like, I hope Michigan just doesn't run it up the middle on this 3rd and 3, and they ran it up the middle. They gave it to Blake Corum, and he got like 5 yards. It's like, well, what am I going to say? Don't run it up the middle. And they did run it up the middle, and it worked. Well, then they come down, and they got a 3rd and 5, and I'm thinking, all right, you can't. You ran it up the middle on a 3rd and 3. Don't run it up the middle on a 3rd and 5. And they ran it up the middle on a 3rd and 5. And I said, the fans, even if you win this game, are going to go back and they're going to say, you can't do this. You can't just be so predictable and just keep running the ball up the middle. That's not going to work. Maybe it's going to work against Ohio State. People are feeling pretty good right now about, beating Ohio State. I'm feeling better about Michigan beating Ohio State, but you're not going to be able to run that ball in a 3rd and 5 against Georgia, or, maybe we got to talk about LSU now, who comes up with a big win against Alabama. Maybe we don't have to worry about Alabama. Scar, they got 2 losses. But what do you think?
Listen, I mean, we got that ball down in there on their goal line, and nothing was easy. They made us go 4th down. I think it was twice on 4th down, right?
Right. That's right.
But listen, we have a belief system. And let me just say this again. We people get frustrated with what we do on offense, but Denny, let me tell you something. The reason we run what we run was because of what you saw happening at Northwestern today. Okay. Michigan's offense in those windy, crummy conditions off of Lake Michigan would have been, our offense is designed for that. We're going to be able to move the football in those conditions. Ohio State, that's their worst nightmare. That is their worst nightmare with what they do, because they got an average run game. So anyway, I get it. I get the frustration, but that's what we believe in. That's what Jim believes in. And, they stopped us in there a little bit, but we moved the ball enough. I'm not beating up our offense, Denny. I think, I think there was some pretty good creativity. We moved it, we threw it, we ran it. They defended us pretty decent at times, but once we got going in the second half, I mean, they never really stopped us.
Give me a word or two on the passing game. There's no doubt, like, if you're, again, I've talked to Michigan fans all week, so I keep referencing them. Michigan fans wanted to see Michigan score in the red zone. I was keeping track of it. I think they ended up being 6 or 7 in the red zone touchdown efficiency, which is too shabby, especially when I think they, got their first 5. But the passing game in the first half, the other part was they want to see Michigan take some shots downfield. First play of the game, they get a pretty big play down the right side to Ronnie Bell. But then there were 2 passes that I don't know if there were some groans. One was a bomb to Andrell Anthony. He reached out, the ball was on his hand. And then another one was to the true freshman Amarian Walker down the left side. And I don't know, like the Big Ten Network, for some reason, they don't like showing replays, but you can go back yourself and take a look at it, but you like to see some different camera angles. But I thought Jake Butt, said it well. When you're throwing a deep ball, sometimes you're trying to put a little bit of air underneath, and when you hear people say, it's a very catchable football, you have other people say it's good that you're hearing a former player, because you have other people say, look, if you get your hands on it, you're supposed to catch it. Now, it wasn't the perfect plane that you would want to, so it wasn't a perfect ball, but yet Anthony, he had his hands on it. What did you make of that one specifically? Did you think, like, when they look at that one, will they say, hey, Anthony, you dropped that ball, you got to catch it? Or are they going to say, JJ, you got to put a little bit more air under it? How are they going to work through that?
I would, if I'm coaching it, a little bit of both. But what Rutgers does defensively, he's a big believer in man coverage, and they were really trying to pressure and stop our run game. This was the kind of game where you have to throw deep. They were forcing you to throw deep, and you got to make them pay for it. And we really didn't make them pay for it like we should have. But yeah, because that's really what that's he's always been a man guy. Our short yardage offense, though, Denny, was pretty good. We had a big first down, 3rd and 2 early in the game. Then on the goal line when we really had to get it in there, we moved them. We moved their guys. Again, it's the same kind of deal we've seen the last couple of weeks. We're moving their front when we really have to, and they're not moving our guys when they really have to. So that's something to be encouraged about.
And that one to the freshman Walker that was down the left side. Now he went down. Now it looked like the ball went right through his hands, but that's one where if that's the only angle we have, it's going to be rough because there's a chance that the defender could have tipped that ball. And there's a chance that he was screened and wasn't able to see the ball, dropping right down to him, or, he could have dropped it, like went right through his hands there. I don't know. What did you see on that one with only knowing that we had the one camera angle on it?
Yeah, he just, the kid hasn't played much, and it wasn't a completed pass. I don't know exactly which guy. I have to look at it really close. I don't know which guy to blame on it, but look, our receivers got to make plays.
Yeah,
it's on JJ. It's on our receivers. And one thing we saw, one thing we saw there that was kind of scary was when it looked like Scooney was banged up a little bit.
Yeah,
and now we're down to a tackle playing tight end and 2 freshmen playing tight end. So that was kind of scary. We got our other All-American tight end is out. We haven't seen him since the first game of the year.
He's probably done for the year. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, our receivers have got to, Ronnie Bell has made some plays. He had a drop in there, but I see it. I see both our quarterback and our receivers. They've got to find a way to take it to the next level. To keep getting better. But I thought our coaches did some adjusting in our short yardage offensive scheme. They did a few things. Maybe I'll be able to show it on Monday that they changed some things because it helped us move the ball in there. We did some changes out of our power play. We were able to run it a little bit, not as well as we did against Penn State, but we ran it a little bit with success. We made some adjustments. I like when I see our coaches make adjustments that give the defense problems. The defense is doing one thing, and then we make adjustments. So I was glad to see that. Denny, you got again, JJ. How many times did he make plays with his legs? He didn't do it as much today. There were a couple up. This team actually put him on the ground. They pressured him. They got in his face. They hit him a few times. But he did make some plays with his legs. I thought the tackle in there, Jeff Percy. I watched him. He's an athletic kid. He's got good feet. He gets to the linebacker. He can get to a linebacker. His pass protection was good. He's a little high. He plays a little high. He's got to get lower. But he's a good-looking player that is a good, solid backup. And we didn't really talk about that. Maybe without Roman Wilson, that was a factor too. We had some guys out. Danny Roman was out. Hayes was out. The upside of it is a lot of guys get more playing time, but there was a lot of good things with our offense too, though. But again, I think our skill player, our receivers got to make plays. Donovan Edwards is one of the best receivers we got. He's the guy that probably gives us some of the greatest mismatch when we do go empty and spread him out. So he continues, and he made it. There was a touchdown today to him, and he continues to be a matchup nightmare for just about everybody we play.
Yeah, he's a great player. I mean, he's going to be in the pros, and he's every time he run that run that he had, he was patient, he was waiting, he burst down the sideline. He looks like an Alvin Kamara, 2.0. And people said that when he was coming in, and they are right on, man. That guy, he can catch the ball. He's fast as blazes. He was great in this game. He was great in the Penn State game too. You hit on the two themes, Scar. Not a surprise. You're right on top of it here. Michigan and their second half adjustments, and then in this particular game, you can go through the tape, and there's going to be a lot of fun if you're a Michigan fan and you got this one recorded, going through and seeing the participation and where everybody played. They didn't have their left tackle Ryan Hayes. Roman Wilson didn't make this trip. Makari Page, was not in there. Khalil Mullings, Jalen Harrell. I mean, that's a lot of different guys. And then in the game, Trevor Keegan was in the medical tent late. I don't know if he ever came back out there, but if you're at this point of the season saying, who are your leaders on the offensive line, you can, you only got 5 guys anyways, but, Ryan Hayes has been playing great. So is Trevor Keegan. And, you don't have those guys in there. So Michigan had to have a lot of different players step up. Their depth was tested. And then that's where you saw all these different wide receivers coming in, and who are they going to go to and who's going to make a play. And, you give that special, when the game was in doubt, a big play to a true freshman who made his first catch, Tyler Morris. You're like, who's that?
Yeah.
Who's 13 coming in, making a big catch, on that out route. So a lot of good things there, but I want you to talk about the second half adjustments, because you go through the Big Ten. Michigan was up on 4. They were up just by 4 on Maryland. They were up 13-0 on Iowa. It was tied in Bloomington against Indiana. Remember, it was a 2-point game against Penn State, and then last week against Michigan State, it was just a 13-7 score. So, and in this one they're down. So there's a part of me, and everybody's panicking. Oh my God, Michigan's going to lose this one. I'm like, Michigan during the Big Ten, what they have shown is that whatever they're doing, and they're talking about, they come out, they've got confidence, and they just did it. I mean, they just slammed the door. 3 and outs, picks, touchdowns, 3 outs, picks.
I don't know who you're referring to as everybody, but I'm glad the guys in the submarine aren't part of everybody, because they came out in the second half. Are you kidding me? We're down at halftime. We come out in the second half. I text my buddies before the second half, we're going to win this game. We got to just secure the ball and play defense. Just secure the ball and play defense, and we'll win this football. So we get we come out on defense, stuff them, punt the football, and then we go down and score. And then we get them. We go back on the field. What did I have here? Let me see. It was stop, drive for a score. Then we pick them and score, and then we pick 6 them and score. I mean, it was just a steamroll, but it was a sign of a mentally tough team. They weren't phased. We come out on defense and stuff them, and then respond right back offensively and drive the football. Now that young quarterback in the first half, he didn't play like the kid that we saw against Minnesota last week. In the second half, he played like a young quarterback that's not ready to. And I don't understand Shiano, because he's got that other kid who's better, the older kid, but he's obviously playing for the future. And if I'm a senior on that team, I'm a little pissed off, because they would have had a better chance with that other kid. But that's their problem. But it's obvious what he's doing. But one more thing, you talked about Donovan. Donovan Edwards showed a lot more toughness inside running. I don't want to go back to him again, but he showed some toughness on some inside runs. But defensively, we made some adjustments. I don't want to say we made adjustments, because they never really moved the ball. But we made some adjustments on how we ran our power play and how we did some of our running plays. But I mean, really, it was the guy throwing. He overthrew the one receiver, and he tips it, and then Barrett catches it, goes in, and then he didn't read the coverage. Michael Barrett we were in his own coverage, and he didn't read it. And then they were killing us so much with the fade, throwing the prayer up to the big kid. Now our coach has made an adjustment again, and we dropped into his own coverage, and the young freshman made the pick. So that was an adjustment, because they were hurting us with the deep ball to the big kid. But again, our defense, we are not going to sit there and let anybody get a beat on what we do. Are we a zone? Are we going to be in zone? Are we going to be in man? And we got some pressure. We got pressure from 4 guys several times today. 4-man pass rush. One of the things that I've said this before, something that bugs me is if a team throws the football on 1st and 10 against Michigan, we don't get much of a pass rush at all, because we're playing run and then we're reacting, and it's frustrating. But we do get pressure when we get them 2nd and 10, 3rd and 8, and then we know they're going to throw. That's when we get our good pressure.
Scar, they had all these guys that didn't say what was wrong with them. A lot of people speculate, well, they must be sick or whatever, because, they look like they're going to play and then they don't. I don't know. And maybe we'll see what Jim Harbaugh says afterwards about that. But you had Blake Corum, who, the report was, we didn't have to see it. He's doubled over and he's throwing up. Now, it happens. Like you watch enough football, you see guys, they're throwing up. I think Bill Russell, the great Bill Russell, I think he used to throw up before every game. That was before the game, not during the game. So is that Is that frequent? Let me just ask you. I mean, that's something like he gets a little dehydrated, but that's nothing to worry about. That's what I'm asking you.
No, I know I play with a guy that used to throw up before games, Mike Mallory. It's just nerves, and some guys just that's just the stress of preparing that you deal with. But some guys that's a natural reaction for them.
Yeah.
And they just deal with it. But what else do I have here? I just was really, one of the most impressive things in this game again, Denny, is that they block a punt. And what does our offense do? We get the ball and we drive it right down and score another touchdown. I mean, that's a sign. It's the same thing we did last week against Michigan State. We stopped them on our goal line, and then our offense comes on the field and takes it, 80 yards and kicks a field goal. So that's the stuff that really, really helps your defense and is the sign of a mentally tough team. Because we really were faced with just about anything that could go wrong, went wrong in that first half. And some of the prayers, the deep ball that their guy comes down with it. And then we had some stupid penalties early on, but we found a way to get through it. I'd like to talk about that punt protection, Denny, real quick, because I don't think Jake got it right. One of the things that I think our coaches try to do, Denny, when you punt the ball, you want to try to get coverage. You want to protect. Number one is protect. And the second thing, you want to get coverage. And I think sometimes our coaches get greedy and they put extra guys detached. So we have 3 gunners. A lot of guys will only have 1 gunner. We had 3 on that play. When they had 7 guys up, we had 6 guys protecting and a long snapper. And I'm going to draw this play up Monday. When you ask a long snapper to snap the football and block a guy, you're going to have problems. And that's what we do. I don't agree with it. We should have brought a guy in because the rest of the game, we had 7 guys protecting and a long snapper. Are you following me?
Yeah.
So we were, I put that on coaches. Jake kind of broke it down pretty good, that Michael Barrett should have felt that. But it was really, I mean, you can't have a guy block a punt who's lined up on the edge, looping all the way through by the center, and then that takes a long time. The snap's got to be quicker, the punt's got to be quicker, and Michael Barrett should have tried to feel it. But more than anything, I would have brought an extra protector in like we did the rest of the game. Okay, our coaches saw it. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, why in the hell do we have that guy out in coverage? It's more important to protect than getting the extra man in on coverage. So that's on coaches more than our protection team.
That's Jim Scarcelli, the former Michigan Wolverine longtime coach. I'm Dennis Fithian. It's the Maize and Blue review. We'll go to Twitter Spaces coming up here. We take your feedback. We're always we want your feedback. This is an interactive show. So you have a question, you have a point for the coach, well, put it up there. Let's take some of the feedback here, Scar, and see what they're saying. Steven says that's what a championship team looks like. It wasn't perfect, but was still masterful. We saw OSU get pushed. This season could be historic.
Hey, Steven, you are right on, man. I mean, that was game 9, right, Denny? Game 9. Guys are beat up. It's hard to get emotionally, mentally, physically ready to play every week. I believe our guys were ready to play. Okay. We just faced some adversity early on. We had a mistake with the punt protection, but he's absolutely right. You go on the road in a hostile night game, and a week after a really emotional game, and our guys responded and didn't let the block punt phase them at all. Our quarterback responded. Our play callers responded. Our defense responded. So you're absolutely right, Stephen. It's a great win.
Here's Antoine on the feedback who says Michigan needs to practice throwing the ball and getting better. Jim has turned them into running the ball too much. We need to get better at passing. We can get there as long as we work at it. More reps, baby.
He's right, man. It's just like it's all passing. You got to just continue to repetition. And we got to hope our receivers just start making some catches, and JJ, and they get that. I actually thought about Antoine today when I'm watching Denny, when I was watching Edwards in there running that ball more physically in the line of scrimmage. I thought about our boy Antoine, who was talking last week, just like I was. He's kind of tippy-toeing a little bit, but he was not tippy-toeing today. I thought he ran that ball in there. He's been watching Corum run, I think.
CR loves the show. It's hoping some recruits are we're watching today's game and gets in there as well.
Yeah, Denny, New Jersey, man, we recruit the heck out of New Jersey, so we always want to come into that town and put the whoop down on, so they know. You want to be 3-9, you go play for Rutgers. You want to play for a championship, you come to Ann Arbor.
All right, a couple more here. Happy for Barrett. D. Brown saying JJ's very tough. I like to see that in him. You can't coach the toughness. JJ took a lot of shots. The pass protection, there were a couple guys that came clean on him. There was a couple, it was a Malachi crunch the one time. He ran, got popped almost near out of bounds. Took a lot of big shots. What'd you think of how he hung in there, threw the ball, his entire game, Scar, if you were taking a look at it?
Yeah, he's a tough kid. And if I'm playing with that kid, I'm loving what I see from that kid. He seems like a real team guy, positive guy. I never see him pointing at a receiver or anybody else, complaining if there's pressure. But yeah, he appears to be a tough kid, and it was good to see our second quarterback get in there. At least we know who it is. It's Warren Davis is our backup quarterback, and he's an athletic kid. So that's the guy. It was good to see our second group get a ton of reps on both sides of the ball. Our second group took it down and scored. And there's a lot of good-looking players, offensive linemen in there, and Stokes bobbling the ball around. We got to find a third running back. Got to find out who the heck that is. But, yeah, it was good to see the young guys get some work in there.
Davis Warren, number 16.
Davis Warren. Yeah, Davis Warren.
That's on it. J.J. McCarthy ends up 13 of 27, 151 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. How about this for the two running backs? Blake Corum, 20 carries, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. Donovan Edwards, 15 carries, 109 yards. So both Michigan running backs, Lightning end up right on the number of 109 yards. I don't know. I know there's a lot of gambling sites and a lot of different props and everything you can. Putting both of your chips on 109-yard rushings in an exacta with those two guys.
Danny, last week I kind of took a shot at Donovan Edwards, saying that I thought there was a difference between Corum and Edwards. You know what? I'm going to bring that thing up here now because you know what? Donovan Edwards, when he's in the game, defenses know it, and they got to deal with him when they split him out. So they have to be thinking about their adjustments a lot differently than when Corum's in the game, because we just don't throw the ball to Corum on wheel routes and all the things we do with Edwards. So, and Edwards, the way he ran the ball today, physically up in there, short yardage stuff. So yeah, both of them are really playing well. And Corum's a great pass protector too.
Before we go to Trevor McHugh on Spaces, bring him in, see what his thoughts are, see if he has any questions for the coach, Jim Scarcelli. Today was a great day in college football, and for Michigan to be able to, and I'll say it, survive, because it was an upset Saturday. You had technically the number one team in Tennessee going into Athens between the hedges and getting popped. Georgia schooled them and ran them right out of the state of Georgia and sent them back to Tennessee with their tails between their legs. But really, the nightcap, watching LSU do what they did to Alabama in overtime and having Brian Kelly, there's spots that I don't like coaches going for 2. But when you're a big-time underdog and in like LSU in this case, and you're at home, that was the spot to do it. And great job by Kelly for making the call, and great execution there by LSU. There have been some games of the year this year, and both of them involved Alabama. Alabama losing to Tennessee, and then Alabama on the last-second field goal, and then Alabama tonight losing to LSU. You're not going to find more drama-filled, great college football than both of those games. Just awesome, Scar. Awesome.
Yeah. I was able to watch, darn near the whole game, the Alabama game. And I tell you one thing, Brian Kelly, I watched that guy win at Grand Valley. I saw him win at Central Michigan. I saw him win at Cincinnati. Saw him win it. I've been following that guy for a long time. The guy's a winner. He's a smart coach, and he understands what he's doing. And, a couple things. I watched that kid who was at Arizona State make a lot of mistakes as a quarterback. I watch him playing for Brian Kelly. He's not making all those mistakes. He's an improved player. I know he's a senior now. He's been around, but you watch that LSU team. They play smart. They don't make a lot of mistakes, and that's a huge win. And indirectly, Danny, I've said this for a while. We need someone to start breaking into the monopoly that Alabama and Georgia have on recruiting down there. So they start dividing the talent, so it can potentially help Michigan. That there's not just two powers, that there's a bunch of teams and the talent is dispersed. So yeah, that could be in the long run helping Michigan when there's when those guys are beating each other up.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels is.
Yeah, he's an improved player.
Yeah, he can run it, he can throw it. I mean, he looks really
good.
But
I told you about Clemson too, Danny. I'd say I play Clemson any day of the week, and Notre Dame put it on them, and I play Notre Dame any day of the week. So,
well, I'll play Illinois any day of the week. They're frauds. Michigan State went in there and popped them pretty good, faking injuries throughout the game to slow them down, however they did it. But they were able to go in there. And, Illinois, everybody was all set up for this, last home game of the year. I'm not saying it's going to be a cakewalk against the Fighting Illini, but, they don't have any offense. They got
listen, Illinois, that team is winning with they're really a well-coached team. They don't have great players. Michigan State has better players. Michigan State's got better running. Illinois got the good running back, but Michigan State's got great skill players, and those skill players played and made plays offensively today. They didn't make a lot of mistakes. We beat a good team there when we beat Michigan State. Michigan State's defensive coordinator, he really showed out again today, in beating Illinois. So that's a good team that we beat when we beat Michigan State last week. And Illinois is a well-coached team. They don't beat themselves. They're smart. They don't have great players, but they don't beat themselves, and they're in the right spots. But, that's a game that if we just, we got better players, we just got to play smart when we face them.
Anybody out there wants to get in, talk ball with the former Michigan Wolverine, Jim Scarcelli, longtime coach in the state of Michigan as well. Yeah, you can jump on in. Here's Trevor McHugh from the Maize and Blue Review that joins us here on the Michigan Postgame Live. And, Trevor, you're going to have a lot of fun watching this tape with all the different Michigan players. It was a different cast of characters, although the script of Michigan coming up big in the second half remained the same. How are you?
Doing really well. How are you guys doing?
We're doing
good, Trevor.
Yeah, I was thinking that the whole time I'm watching it. Like, man, my stock report's going to be fun this week. We haven't gotten a chance to see some of those. We saw guys step up in terms of filling in for injuries. And, of course, at the end of the game, we got to see some second and third teamers as well. So, good dominant win for Michigan, and also an opportunity to get some guys some more run, something that hasn't been happening the last couple of weeks.
Well, what's standing out to you? So the tail of the tape is to me. I'm going to ask you the same thing because Scar was a good one to ask about. He didn't seem all that worried at the half. Trevor, what about you?
No, I think it was largely what we thought we were going to see. Right, this is another game where Michigan's been dominating on the stat sheet, but maybe not necessarily on the scoreboard. They make the second half adjustments, and all the reasons they were dominating in the first half just magnify in the third quarter, and they end up getting a convincing win, right? So Rutgers is well coached. Greg Schiano is a good coach. He's a guy that's got some experience against Michigan as well, being a defensive coordinator at Ohio State for a little bit. Every game Michigan plays, largely they get the best out of their opponent because they're Michigan. That's been magnified this year because they're the defending Big Ten champions. So this was a big game for Rutgers. They played extremely physical in the first half. We saw a lot of big hits on JJ, Ronnie Bell, Schoonmaker. They just played tough. And then, Michigan's mistakes compounded, right? So again, on the stat sheet, they're winning the battle in the trenches. They've got time of possession. They're running the ball well, but you miss a field goal. You got a blocked kick that they scoop and score, and you look up and you're losing at halftime for the first time this year. But again, second half adjustments. Jesse Minter has just been an absolute wizard this year, and why Michigan's offense is good. And I know some fans continue to freak out, but this travels every week. Michigan runs the ball, and they don't let the other team run the ball. Okay, 282 yards for Michigan, 14 for Rutgers. I don't care who you play. That's a formula to win a football game.
Well, let me ask both of you guys. Scar, on Tuesday, they'll come out with the college football rankings, and we already mentioned that Tennessee was number 1, and they lost to number 3, Georgia. Alabama was in the top 6. They lost. Clemson was at number 4. They lost. Ohio State, I'm going to say barely, but I would say it. They struggled. It was a windy game against Northwestern. Let's have you go first. Do you have, if you're going to pick 4 teams that you think that you can go ahead and rank them in the college football playoff, who would you have at number 1?
Who would I have, or what do I think the committee is going to do?
I'm letting Scar, I'm going to have you pick yours. I'm going to have Scar. I want yours, and then, but Scar, I want your number 1 first.
If I'm Michigan, the last team I would want to face, who I think deserves to be, I think Georgia's defense is the last team I would want to face because they got big, thick, strong, fast dudes. Then they would be good at defending us. Us and Ohio State, I would put Georgia 1, us and Ohio State 2, 3. Okay, so now we're looking at 4. So no more Clemson.
No.
So what's next? Does that mean we're looking at
TCU? Yeah, that's right.
TCU. And then I would rather face TCU in a minute than face the Alabama defense. The two defenses I do not want to face in America are Georgia's and Alabama's. Okay, so if Alabama's out of the mix, so I would not want to face Georgia's defense or Alabama's defense, but TCU should probably be 4, Michigan, Ohio State 2, 3, however you want to put them in there, and that's how I would put it.
Believe me, those crybabies from Tuscaloosa, if they go to they'll think that somehow they should still get into the college football playoff. They'll be the greatest 2-loss team ever. All right, Trevor, you're going to do both. You're going to give us your top 4, and then you're going to say how you think that it'll actually shake out.
Yeah, my top 4, I think Georgia is the clear-cut number 1. In terms of resume, Tennessee was number 1 college football playoff this week. Georgia was number 1 in the polls. Again, Tennessee got the boost for a tougher resume initially, but Georgia's the better team, and I'm with Jim 100%. Easily the toughest matchup for Michigan left. I think the other obvious answer at this point is going to be TCU at 4. I don't think they're the 4th best team, right? But again, in terms of resume, I would put them at 4. And then I would have Michigan at 2 above Ohio State. I think the committee will have Ohio State at 2 and Michigan at 3, just because if they had Michigan at 5 already because of, I don't know what to think with their criteria because it's different depending on which team they're talking about. But clearly, they're looking at some of the close scores in Maryland and Iowa and discounting Michigan for that, the out-of-conference schedule, etc. But Michigan's the better team at this point because, again, they run the ball and they stop the run. Ohio State being slowed down as much as they were. I know it was windy. I know that's crazy, right? But that's Northwestern, arguably the worst Big Ten team we've seen in a really, really long time. And they can't run the ball when they need to. So last year, I was confident in Michigan winning that football game because of what I thought was a good matchup for the Wolverines. This year, I kind of wanted to see with how dominant the wide receivers would be, blah, blah, blah. The defense isn't that much improved, and the running game is significantly weaker. So right now, I think Michigan's above Ohio State, and they might start being talked about to be the favorite.
Hey, Trevor, Danny, you know the most encouraging thing I saw from that Ohio State game was how Northwestern was able to run the football when windy, tornado-like conditions. The opponent's running the football. Northwestern was able to run the ball against that Ohio State defense. That was encouraging, big time. The more and more I saw them run the ball, the more and more every week I watch certain things about that Ohio State team, I get more and more confident. You know, obviously our players aren't thinking about that game yet, but there are a lot of things that I liked today. I hope when we go down to Columbus, we got the same kind of conditions they had over there in Chicago today. Windy.
Yeah, I hope it snows. I hope it's a little windy when they play down in Columbus. But I don't Stroud, if you get him like, let's say, in a dome, perfect conditions and everything, boy, you climate control, he's really nice. If you get a little wind, make it a little cold, his play drops down drastically. Trevor, point out, we've talked about all the different players, and we've talked about both running backs and J.J. McCarthy and everything else. You want to speculate on all these injuries? This was something where these guys, if this was Ohio State, all these guys that missed the game today, like Hayes and Wilson and Page and Mullings and Harrell and you don't need to speculate on Trevor Keegan unless you know anything about that. But at least would those guys have played today if Michigan would have been playing Ohio State? And what do you think?
Yeah, I don't have to speculate too much. And big plug for Maize and Blue Review real quick. If you had been on Michigan.Rivals this week, you would have seen that Josh had intel all week on the players that were going to be out in this game. So the term we keep hearing was they were banged up and nothing serious, nothing that's going to be lingering. Roman Wilson was working out and practicing this morning at Schembechler. So I did get the sense that a lot of these, or all of these injuries for that fact, had this been a home game where they didn't have to travel, they probably would have been dressed. Had it been a bigger game, they probably would have played. So not really concerned about any of these injuries lingering on. Mozzie Smith, being captain, looks like he fought his way onto the plane because he was somebody we were expecting to not play, and then it was game time decision, and then it was limited, and Mozzie Smith played. So that's what happens when you're a beast and a captain. But yeah, in terms of injury concerns, don't really have any. And good to see the guys that did fill in, like Jeff Kersey, really having a good game with the opportunity they were given.
What about some of the other guys that stepped up? I already mentioned Tyler Morris, that big catch. Scar, you talked about Chris Jenkins all year long. There were some other, I don't know how many times I've seen Big 99 in there, Cam Good, but
yeah. That was good to see. Obviously, we start with Jenkins and Mozzie, and they were both real solid. Jenkins continues to he gives us pass rush too when they do throw the ball on early downs. So he gives us that. But it was good to see. And then Mason Graham, and then Benny. Those are the first two in at the defensive tackle. But we saw the young guys, and we saw Good in there. I think that's how you say is that how you pronounce his name. And then Grant. So there were three that played in there, and you see improvement with the big fella Grant. I remember watching him, week 1 or 2 when he was getting reps, how high he was playing, looking a little sloppy in his technique. They have coached him up. He looks better. I was watching closely at some of the young guys that were in there, and it was great to see those guys get multiple reps. Real quick, one more thing, Danny. I think this is the only game that we didn't win the kicking game. I'd have to say that we, because of the block punt, Jay Harbaugh's been out coaching people all year in the kicking game. But the one good thing about our kick game today was the way we defended the onside kick. And that was really good. Our guys did a good job there because oftentimes you'll see your front wall bailing out before the ball is kicked. And you got to coach those guys to sit in there and wait for that ball to get kicked. And you watch the Michigan front wall, every one of them waited for that ball to be kicked, and they reacted to it. So that was coaching. Our players made a big – because Shiano was trying to capitalize on that momentum. He just blocks a punt, and now he's going to go for the jugular, and our guys responded. That was a big play for our special teams.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about the first half as I was watching it, and – I know you said that Michigan State did it. They were attacking the corners and throwing the ball down the field. But, Rutgers did it. They were making plays. And then they made one up the middle where it was a, guy made a long gainer. And then they went for it on 4th down and they scored a touchdown. So there was a little bit where you're thinking, man, these are some big plays. But my main concern with that looked like it was the players in the secondary and in the back 7 or 6, however you want to look at it. But then in the second half, all those guys, Barrett makes the 2 plays. Will Johnson, he looked very, I don't know. I get sometimes when it's a 5-star and a guy makes a play, you just think like, wow, this guy's great. But he looked really good when he made the pick and he started turning around and running the ball. It's like, man, this guy looked great. I want you guys both just comment on a player or two. Scar, will start with you. Any more guys, whether it's defensively or offensively, that you looked out there where maybe we can tackle them all here as we talk about all the players. Who else is just jumping out as we talk about, Michigan football here close to midnight in early November?
Yeah, I watched the edge guys. Taylor Upshaw did some good things. We're playing 5-6 guys in there, and we're getting some pressure. They bring 3 edge players in when we do get him 3rd and long. So I like some of the things I'm seeing out of him. Will Johnson missed a big tackle in there that would have got us off the field, and that set up one of their touchdowns. But I think in general, we're all improving. And I was really able to see it with that second group when they got in there, that even though they're not getting a lot of playing time, you could tell they're getting work in practice, and you're seeing improvement.
Good stuff. As the 1st, 4th, and 6th ranked teams in college football lose today on an upset Saturday, Michigan might have been thinking that they were going to join that group at halftime. Didn't happen. They came out and dominated the second half. Trevor, how about a player or two that we haven't talked about that you have listed down there that you do want to mention?
Well, my guy is the one that Jim just led with, which is Taylor Upshaw. I think you remember Dennis all offseason. I was big on the Taylor Upshaw hype train this offseason, and early on when they were doing rotations and kind of trying to figure out what the first unit was going to look like, second, and where guys' roles were going to be. He was a little uncomfortable in the first half of the year. And the last 4 games, he's kind of settled back into more of a similar role to what he had last year. And we were starting to see him playing less snaps, but generating more pressure, having a bigger impact. Tonight, he played quite a bit with Jalen Harrell out, and I thought he had a great game, right? Got to the QB, lots of pressure, and just having him step into that role now and looking more comfortable. He's kind of a tweener like Jenkins in terms of just being a bigger guy that can stand on the edge or get his hand in the dirt. And, now you start to talk about that group with Morris. And, Oki's still being the speed guy, still got some things that he's working on, but he can generate pressure. But when Harrell comes back and Upshaw and McGregor looked good last week, when Derek Moore's still there, that group's really starting to come together. And then you consider, the inside, the defensive tackles. The defensive front as a group is just significantly improved this year. Obviously losing Hutch and Ojabo, but as an entire group, just been really impressed with them.
Yeah, I want to get both of your thoughts on this. I think the wide receiver, just the position group here, is fascinating. Roman Wilson wasn't available in this game, and then Michigan, they're targeting Andrell Anthony early. They throw a ball down, and you're like, hey, who's this guy? Amarian Walker down the sideline in the first quarter with the game on the line. They're throwing to him. Tyler Morris, the other freshman, comes out in the second half and makes a gigantic catch for Michigan. I would have thought, hey, they would put A.J. Henning in there. I think he ended up, they ran Andrell Anthony on the end around that they usually have for A.J. Henning. Cornelius Johnson, there's sometimes he's out there and you're like, man, this guy makes a really bad play. He drops that when he should have had it. He doesn't do this. And the next thing you know, he's out there scoring a touchdown. And, Ronnie Bell seems to be the consistent Scar. But what about this position group? I mean, they got a lot of different guys. They're putting a lot of different guys in there trying to figure out. I mean, you can only have, you got an X, you got a Y, you got a Z, but you're only going to have 3 guys that you're going to say are going to lead you and, you're going to target the most. But, right now I just went through 5 guys. I didn't even mention Darius Clemens, and Roman Wilson was hurt. I not played in this game, whatever. So how do you see that position group?
Danny, I think the foundation of our receivers are, Roman Wilson, Ronnie. It's what we've seen for 8-9 games. It's not going to change with those young guys. The young guys, everything we're doing, every snap they're getting now is for next year. It's building confidence. It's getting an understanding of playing night game, home road game. Those guys really aren't in a position, I don't think, to challenge the playing time. It was all about giving them reps in a game like this. But Danny, let me just say one more thing about our defense that I think we all have to understand something. The Iowa game, Indiana, Penn State, Michigan State, Rutgers. The bottom line is we've been able to make them one-dimensional. One-dimensional is what we've been able to do as a defense for the most part. You know, we have taken away the run game, Minter, the scheme, the players, the techniques, and the inability for offenses to figure out exactly what the heck we're doing, because I can't figure out what the heck we're doing half the time, which is good because I see a lot of different things at different times, and that's what the sign of a great coach. But we are making teams one-dimensional, and again, I just want to keep hitting it again because that's something that it's amazing that we've been able to do it now 4 or 5 weeks in a row.
Trevor, you could comment on the wide receivers, but, Nebraska, Illinois, and Ohio State, if somehow Jesse Minter is able to, take it to the finish line here and he continues this masterful second half adjustments, we might have consecutive years where, Michigan could, have a Broyles Award winner. Gaddis won it last year, but, maybe Minter, the way he's been, whatever they're doing at the half, obviously it's working.
Yeah, I mean, we heard all offseason this was going to be year 2 of the defense, and that's been true. And we've also seen this evolution and, Minter implementing his own little pieces, right? McDonald was a former linebacker coach, Minter secondary coach, and we've kind of seen now how that's impacted some of the scheme. But yeah, Minter has been phenomenal. His play calling's been great. His adjustments have been great. That Will Johnson interception, it's going to be fun to watch that back and show kind of how they trapped them into throwing that and allowing Will Johnson to come forward and make the interception. So yeah, Minter's been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And all the people that didn't know what they were talking about when they said, "Oh, he's just from Vanderbilt." Well, yeah, there you go. Like you said, probably going to be in the running for the Broyles. So as far as the wide receivers, I started to pick on them last week in my stock report because, everybody's talking about the passing game and, we were talking about maybe their lack of separation or like you brought up, right? As good as Cornelius Johnson and Ronnie Bill can be, it's the inconsistency, right? And it's the catches in traffic, and it's the high pointing the ball and fighting for it. Michigan doesn't really have those guys like we saw last week with Keon Coleman, this week with Sean Ryan and Rutgers, right? The big dude that can just go up and get the ball. And I think they're looking for him with Andrell Anthony. And then now, throwing out Amorian Walker and Tyler Morris. Again, what we have this year is set in stone, right? Our top 3 are going to be Bell, Kojo, and Roman Wilson. But yeah, they're just inconsistent on the outside. And we don't have, the Amara Darbo or the Mario Manningham, that guy that Michigan so consistently had. We will in the future, I think. The wide receiver room is.
Well, Trevor, I tell you, I know when Moeller and Lloyd, those guys wanted the big Braylon Edwards type guys. It was just a philosophy of what we wanted in recruiting. We wanted the 6'3" guy that could out-jump guys, but they might not get the separation. And then the mindset changed. I think Josh Gaddis had a lot to do with, the speed and space type guy. You know what I mean? Then he tried to find the little guy. And I think some of the recruiting philosophies changed. Now sometimes you think Jim with Andrell Anthony is kind of going back and forth. But yeah, it's nice to have that big kid that's always open. But getting back to the coaching, Denny, I thought about this. My freshman year, Bill McCartney was the defensive coordinator. Great defensive coordinator. Went on to build Colorado. We all know what he did. Great, brilliant mind. But my second year, my sophomore year, Gary Moeller comes in and he's the defensive coordinator. We didn't change nothing. We didn't change any terminology. Nothing changed. It was just 2 brilliant guys, and everything stayed the same for the players. The same concepts, the same everything, pretty much. Minor little tweaks that the different coaches like, but that's where we are. I think as a defense now. I think as an offense too. We could lose Moore and Weiss, and I don't think a darn thing is going to change on offense. The foundation is set. I think on both sides of the ball, what Michigan football is.
Good stuff. Let's read some of the feedback, and anybody can take a shot at these. JG saying it was a true beatdown, but these slow starts need to be corrected. They need to come out a little bit faster. It won't fly with the elite teams, but overall, there's a lot to love. What about coming out faster? Sure, that sounds like a good idea. Come out, get these games done with right away. Play like they did in the second half tonight in the first half against Nebraska, and then you can just empty the benches in the second half against the Cornhuskers. What about that thought, Scar?
I mean, we took the opening drive down and scored a touchdown. You know what I mean? Yeah, we had listen, the block punt changes everything. And again, I gotta compliment our players because mentally, like I said, I remember reading that stat 80% of the time. If you got a block punt, you lose the football game. That our guys weren't phased, man. We dealt with it, and our offense responded right getting back on the field and drove it down for a field goal. So or I don't know if it was a touchdown or a field goal, but it's a sign of a mentally tough team. Moody didn't. This is a thought though, because Moody, I think last year when he missed a couple of field goals, you remember Denny? He went on a little stretch. Those guys, you got to get their mind right. Those kickers, they got to be confident. So hopefully, Moody's mind is strong, and he'll just move beyond this performance tonight.
I don't know what the wind was like there. They were 2 50-yarders. Trevor, with Moody here, the thing is, you don't want to see any field goals, but, he had one late where he was able to. So maybe that was a confidence builder for him. I don't think they're going to need him against Nebraska and Illinois necessarily, but everything now seems like, you start fine-tuning and nitpicking a little bit because you say, hey, if Michigan scores like they did in the red zone today against Ohio State, they'll put 50 points up on Ohio State. They'll dominate Ohio State, and they'll go to the Big Ten championship game. So everything now seems like I'm not overlooking them, or I can overlook them. The team won't be overlooking them, but we're talking about now. It's close enough to the finish line that everything you feel like come out fast against Ohio State. Don't get a punt blocked. Run the ball, throw the ball. Hit those deep passes. You do all those things, they might be able to beat Georgia too.
Yeah, there's kind of a fluky element to it. Michigan scores, I don't remember the exact number right now, but I feel like they've scored every first drive this year, right? They score early and often. The block punt was weird. If Andrell Anthony makes that grab on the deep shot, we're probably having a completely different conversation right now. And I feel like each game we've said that about a single play. If blank happens, we're probably having a different conversation, right? So I'm still not concerned about that. And Jim Harbaugh, he still coaches and develops the team. I made the comparison very much like the NFL, right, where it's building throughout the year. And to get the team playing their best football at the end of the year, which is, of course, against Ohio State. So I still chalk it up a little bit fluky. So I'm not too concerned about the quick starts, if you will. And then, with Moody, I don't know if either of you are a golfer, but whenever I did my golf league, I'd see all these guys on the putting green trying to hit them from, 20, 30 feet away before they walk to the tee box. And I would sit there and just putt 3, 6-inch foot away over and over again because I want to see that ball going in the cup. And then when I went out there, you're not thinking about, how you're standing and your mechanics and all of that. You've just got it in your mind and you're draining it. Moody's going to be the same way, right? Where get out of your own head. You've missed a couple, whatever. But the guy's a Groza Award winner. I'm not concerned about him missing any kicks. The wind was pretty heavy crosswind today on that first kick. You could see he's got a pretty good draw. He tried putting it on there and the wind pushed it right back out again. So chalk that one up for the win.
All right. Scar, you'll be doing some video film analysis coming up. Are there some plays that you've already thought about, like that you're mentally checking out? Or are you going to just watch? I don't know what your process is if you want to reveal that, but will you go back and watch the game tomorrow morning and start making your notes on there? Or do you already have a play or two that you're thinking about?
We'll look at the adjustments we made to the power play. Donovan Edwards' big run was an adjustment. We threw a curveball at him. And they bit, and we were able to, execute it. And our last question there was about our adjustments. I totally agree with the adjustments, how we've done a great job making adjustments. But I'll look at the punt protection. I'll explain it, what I would have done as a coach, because we should have brought the other extra guy in. And but there was a lot of good things. There was some missed tackling from Michigan. There was a Sanistro lost contain on a corner. A safety blitz one time. We made mistakes early on that let them keep their drives going, and we can't do those against the Buckeyes. But I'll hopefully be able to show some of the adjustments and some of the good things some of the problems we gave them schematically, and some of the good plays that players made.
Sounds good, Trevor. Anything that you're going to be zeroing in on? Do you know yet, or do you got to dive into it before you know anything?
Yeah, probably going to have to dive in, but I think kind of what you suggested, we saw a lot of different guys tonight. So it's going to be interesting to see what the snap counts look like, when guys were used in the run defense, when they were used in the pass rush. And then just Michigan's been doing some interesting things too in terms of with the safeties and the linebackers and where they're lining them up in terms of, on the box, on a receiver, on the line, whatever. So I'm going to dig deep into that in terms of where guys were lining up and what the snap shares was and what we can kind of project out moving forward.
Well, Trevor, it's great to have you on. And for those of you that might be listening or watching for the first time, we got a great deal going on in the Maize and Blue Review right now. Go to michigan.rivals.com. You can get instant access and you can get 50% off for the year. So check that out. And you can see all of Trevor's great work on the Maize and Blue Review. Trevor, great job. Nice to talk with you.
You too, guys. Have a great night.
All right, Trevor.
And, for me, Scars, I take a look at this is that, today was one of those Saturdays. We're getting later now. You're into November. You start looking at the finish line and you feel like championship football. And I was ignoring the noon window today. I was just going to focus in on, 3:30. It's going to be Tennessee and it's going to be Georgia. I'll have Michigan State and Illinois. Then I'll take it into the night. Alabama, LSU will work in there. But I couldn't ignore the 12 o'clock window because Northwestern, people are like, the Cats are hanging with the Buckeyes, and it was turning into an upset Saturday. And the further you go along when you're undefeated and everybody's talking about you nationally, you just the further you go, the more exciting it is. But then it also, if you get closer to losing, it's going to feel that much worse. I mean, so there's a lot of emotions going around. It was an upset Saturday. Great job by LSU beating Alabama, but Michigan survives. They're 9-0. They're going to be moving up. They'll be at the lowest third in the college football playoffs right now. So as much as we might look and say, well, the first half and when they get the red zone, all these different things, man, they are sitting pretty. They got the showdown with Ohio State coming up in a couple weeks, and things are looking really good, Scott.
Yeah, but Danny, again, I get back to being the player, and I know as a coach, you know what the coaches are saying? Hey, keep going to school, focus on your schoolwork. When you're up on campus, don't do nothing stupid. Get a good night's sleep, eat right, keep your strength, and then let's have good practices, pay attention in meetings. But the coaches now too, though, this is the one of many things Bo was so smart at. As the year goes on and you start to get banged up, and it's hard to go to practice, now we're going into week 10, and you gotta shorten the practice. Bo used to knock 10, 15 minutes off every couple weeks as the season went on. You can't have 3-hour practices, week 9 and 10. You got to get them out of there. And I think Jim does the same things because you gotta, again, you don't need as much football this time of year. I think guys know how to tackle and do some of the basic things. You don't want to beat them up.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to you going over your film analysis, and we'll have that show coming up for everybody 1:00 on Monday. Got any other final thoughts?
No, great win. We faced adversity. I mean, it was in a lot of ways, it's a perfect win. Because remember I said going in, I wanted a game where we could, we won and we were able to play a lot of young guys. And we know who the heck our backup quarterback was. So in a way, this was actually a perfect game. I know from that standpoint that a lot of young guys were able to play because obviously there's players that are beat up and we got to have the second man ready. So we're able to do that. Big win. We move on in Nebraska, coming back home. It's all good.
I'll meet you halfway, Scar. I thought the second half was perfect, but I'm not ready to go for the first half when you're down 17-14. But I see where you're coming from. Can't wait to talk with you on Monday. For Jim Scarcelli. 52-17. Michigan beats Rutgers after being down at the half, and they are 9-0, and they'll continue next week. They will entertain Nebraska. For Scar, Dennis Fithian, thanks for watching. And everybody.